the whole idea of finding purpose, it's quite hard, right? You said we all pause, we all research, reflect, and then we find it. But my observation is that so many of us don't find it for a decade or more, or ever. Do you share that observation? Because you know so many exited founders. Obviously, you work with them in your fund. You run a whole organization for Europe for exited founders. So you see lots of other people. Like, what's your observation in terms of how successful other people are in finding their purpose post-exit?
I guess I've been fortunate. I've probably now met hundreds of exited founders, and each one has got their own journey. And the ones that probably, I believe, have done the work is they pause for longer, right? And they spend more time on that pausing and that recalibration of what is their purpose. And they just sit with the fire, I like to call it, because it's not easy, because you're reflecting back and you acknowledge that stuff that you've probably done wasn't done consciously. Because you're moving so fast and you're just not self-aware. And to then also decode what is my life purpose is a very complex puzzle. It's probably one of the hardest puzzles one has to solve, especially when they're doing it the first time after they've had an exited company. So, and that puzzle is very complex. It's simple but complex, and it's very unique to them. And I think what I find is that people will go read books and go on the internet and try to figure out what their purpose is. And however it's been written for that person, I feel like each person's purpose is specific to them, and they have to spend time trying to decode it. And plus there's layers. When I meet these founders, I can see who's probably done more work by just how they answer the question. Are they conscious? Are they in the moment? So you can normally sense it. And I guess I'm one of those people that likes to sit in the fire. I've always done it. I think since the age of like 22, 23, I was one of those crazy people that got into Tony Robbins quite early on. And then so I'd sit on a Sunday and just sit there thinking about my purpose and what my values are. So I've been that person. So I like that work.
Do you think your Indian heritage has something to do with it?
I feel maybe.
Because that's my observation, that Indians are dealing much better with existential issues.
Interesting. So I was, I guess, born as a Hindu, and my parents are both Indian. They weren't religious. My grandma was. She would read like scriptures. I was aware of it, but I didn't really. I wasn't really following the religion. I knew aspects. I celebrate certain days. I knew parts, but I didn't actually study the scriptures. I actually studied the Indian scriptures as well as other scriptures, like in Christianity, studied Kabbalah, I've studied quite a few. And it was only at that point when I was trying to figure out what is my purpose and what's life about. That's when I genuinely was all in and I wanted to figure it out, and I started reading it. I feel that with Hinduism, it's around spirituality, that's at its core. So it does allow you to be a free thinker, which has helped.
My theory is that it's because so many of us in the West have this fear of spirituality and this idea that spirituality is this weird mysticism. Like there's skepticism towards spirituality. Even if you're not religious, you may be open enough to go and take religions seriously and not just necessarily your family's religion, but as you said, Kabbalah and whatever else you read. I think skepticism is a huge problem.
I didn't really believe in spirituality or trusting that there's a higher power, or like that wasn't really me. I had to go through my own journey, but for me it's come through feelings, as in me practicing yoga, me doing meditation, me doing breath work. I think what I found is when I'm in those moments of stillness, I feel something within me. I can feel something beyond me. And that's when things started coming true for me. Each person just needs to go on their own journey. And I've got loads of friends who are atheists. I've got lots of friends who are totally against spirituality. But as long as they feel there's something that really makes them happy in the end, or like takes them back to like a loving place, because that's really what it is. As long as they've got love in them, that's okay. Spirituality to me helped me to connect me to that kind, loving state. Because I think that's what we all hopefully thrive to get to eventually.
Yeah.
And spirituality is a connection point to that.
Because all religions actually have the same message. And
Yeah,
the
for
message
sure.
is grow out of your selfishness.
Yes.
And become bigger, become less selfish.
Yes.
And for me, for example, I only truly understood what purpose is when I understood this message. Because purpose is not about doing what we love. Purpose is actually about committing to contribute at our very best and from the right place, which is love or duty.
Yeah.
Right? And if we don't have this intent, if we are not ready for that, we can't have purpose. We can have a job.
Yeah.
We can have an occupation. We can be busy. But we can't have the sense of purpose, because having a sense of purpose is actually that reward we get for contributing to the world.
Yeah, no,
and,
totally.
And even though I agree with you that our paths are very individual, I think the blocks on our paths are actually very typical. And one of them is that spiritual skepticism and also the lack of understanding of what purpose is. We feel intuitively we want to find purpose, but we can't even define it.
Yeah.
You know, I ask people on this podcast very often, like, what is purpose for you? And it's incredible that people actually don't know. They say, I am looking for purpose, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, because there's just so much in their mind and they've got such a logical mind, they may be very gifted intellectually, or they've been praised as their identity of being very smart. And things like spirituality go beyond the mind. And it's not something you can totally logically process. It's something that you feel or you believe, right? And that's not logical. So I feel for, successful entrepreneurs, or just any entrepreneur, because they're so convinced that they're the ones in charge and they're the ones that go from A to B. When I ask certain founders, they go, okay, like, what determines your success? They go, it's me. And whereas I'm like, but there's a lot of things outside of your control as well. But they're just focused on them being in control.
That's this selfishness, right? That's this me, and not being able to see that we are part of something much bigger.
Yeah. I think at the right time, I feel people will find that place. And I think as you go more in that journey, you start realizing how incredible everything really is.